listening to the IELTS podcast. Learn from tutors and ex-examiners who are masters of IELTS preparation. Your host, Ben Worthington.
Mastering the IELTS Speaking exam. Hi there, my name's Ben Worthington. This is going to be a fairly basic tutorial, in all honesty. We're going to look at the criteria and the format, but also throughout the tutorial, even though the structure may seem quite basic, quite straightforward, there will be another layer on top. So I may mention there's 4 criteria. One of them is coherence, but I won't stop there. I will go into fluency and coherence, not only give you the definition, but I'll also tell you how you can improve it. So even though the structure might be relatively straightforward, the actual content is going to be quite practical and quite valuable for you. So let's jump into it. Before we do, actually, let me just tell you who I am. My name's Ben Worthington. I've been teaching IELTS now for well over 10 years. We were the first to launch an IELTS podcast. And why did we launch it? Well, when I started out with IELTS, I was really confused. I was frustrated. And I started asking other tutors around, and I got some really good advice. And I was like, hang on a second, I can record this and I can help more students. So I did. And also with that advice, I tested it out on my own students. And I still do this to this day. I still have my own private students. Every now and again, when I've got space in my agenda, I go and do it. And I like doing this because I can test out new material. And I can, get my hands dirty. That's just an expression to mean like get stuck in. Instead of building the business, it's always good just to go back, to do what you love. So every now and again, I open up my classes and I take on some private students and I get to test out the material. And also recently, actually, we've reopened it because we're developing this chatbot and I want to test out some new material with that as well. So anyway, that's how I got into teaching the IELTS. Before I got into IELTS, I was just a general English teacher and I didn't mind it, but sometimes having unmotivated students that didn't really have that much pressure, that I couldn't really test if what I was teaching or not was working. Whereas with the IELTS, we had this pressure, we had this motivation. And with the students getting band 7, band 8, band 9, I knew what I was teaching was working. I was effective. We were getting the results back. So let's jump into it. Today we're looking at mastering the IELTS speaking section. We're going to first look at the criteria. Then we're going to look at the parts of the exam. And throughout this kind of basic structured tutorial, you will be picking up strategies on how to improve your vocabulary, avoid repetition. We're going to look at techniques to improve your pronunciation. And we're going to look at the importance of maintaining a smooth flow of speech in the IELTS speaking exam. Let's jump into it. First of all, the criteria, fluency and coherence. This is quite a challenge for teachers to teach. And from my experience, the best way to teach this is not just to talk and talk and talk and talk a lot, or get the student to talk and talk and talk a lot. That does help. But if we are a little bit smarter about this, we can get the student to talk a lot about one topic, and just get that topic kind of mastered, get that vocabulary mastered, and then we see the fluency and the coherence improve. So for example, if we've got a 60-minute session and we spend 10 minutes on 6 different topics: on crime, on climate change, on education, on society, and technology, for example, 5 different topics there. We're not going to get that deep into any of the topics, and we're not going to have that much repetition. Now, when we're practicing, we want as much repetition as possible in order to consolidate, in order to make sure that we've fully learnt the term and that we've used it correctly. So we would have just one solid class all about climate change, where we've used the term climate change, emissions, CO2, carbon footprint, global warming. We've used all of those terms at least like 20 times each. And each time, because we're getting feedback from the tutor, from myself, for example, we've used them correctly and in context, because we got that feedback and we practiced it again and again and again. So anyway, as you will have guessed, fluency refers to the smooth flow of words without unnecessary pauses. And we get this fluency through repetition. You've heard me say it before. Repetition is the mother of all learning. Now, the next pillar in the criteria is coherence. Coherence means that your ideas connect logically. This is again why we just focus on one topic in order to gain this ability to stitch different ideas, such as the relationship between CO2 emissions and global warming. If we dance around and do 5 different topics, 6 different topics, we don't get that depth. And this is why a competent tutor will only just focus like one topic at a time. Right then. Next one, lexical resource. Now, this criteria assesses your variety, the variety of words you use. Repetition is going to kill your score here. And this is, again, why, even though you've heard me say we need to repeat, we need a lot of repetition in order to learn, in the exam, we don't need the repetition, okay? In the exam, we need a variety. But there's no point having a large variety that we're using incorrectly. We need to use a large variety accurately. This is why we're taking it slow. We do one topic at a time. We master that. We get the accuracy. Then we move on to the next topic. But also, it's not just topic-specific vocabulary that we need. We also need different ways of saying fantastic, terrific, amazing. Yeah? And just one side note here. When you are practicing and you hear yourself saying words like good, bad, very big, very small, these are incredibly basic. You learnt these words at the beginning of your English language journey. If you're aiming for a band 7, we want to avoid these basic words and just say it was an incredibly fantastic experience. Another word to definitely replace is the word nice. My English teacher, when I was at school, I remember so clearly, he just said, never use the word nice. It's horrible. Let me give you an example. We could say the building is nice, or we could say it has beautiful architecture. Yeah? We could say we've got a nice friend, or we could say we've got a friend who's always there for us. We could say we've got I like geography, it's a nice school subject. No, we should say I love geography. It's my most favorite school subject. I find it so interesting. Okay, so we upgrade our language by not only avoiding repetition, but by avoiding the basic terms. Good, bad, be, nice, do. Okay, and if you want to take it to another level, and you can also do this with your writing, but the basic verbs such as be and do. Yeah? They say, I was in an interview, for example, or I participated in an interview, or even better, I was interviewed. No, that's not even better. But the point is, for most of the basic verbs, be, have, do, there's usually a more specific one that just enriches our lexical resource score. Next one, grammatical range and accuracy. So again, if we're using a powerful technique like the one I've shared before, and you've got a tutor who's able and knows how to use this technique and can use it effectively, And by effective, I mean by the end of the class you're tired because the class has been so intense. That's the level I aim for. Okay, my time is precious, your time is precious as well. You've got the exam coming up, you need to learn this fast. We're not going to waste time with general chit chat. We're going to have lots of structured, controlled exercises that force accurate responses, and then conversation at the end of the class covering what we did throughout the class. Okay, so it's all structured, every minute counts. You don't want to waste it. It's probably just as effective as having 3 classes with a normal tutor. Okay, so anyway, grammatical range and accuracy, the basics, getting control of the articles, describing events and memories precisely, and using the appropriate vocabulary. This is why getting in that exercise with a competent tutor and learning powerful techniques can quickly improve your score, and most importantly your confidence, because we all know if you're going in there nervous, it's incredibly harder, not only for you but for the examiner as well. Now, pronunciation, this one is tricky. A lot of tutors sidestep this when it comes to pronunciation, because the best method of teaching pronunciation is like, oh, listen and repeat. That's not going to cut it. For pronunciation, I've got lots of different skills I share with the students, but a very quick one is just by slowing down, exaggerating, and opening your mouth and speaking even slower. So opening up your mouth wider and slowing down. I remember actually asking one student, or telling one student, I say, look, just mimic what I say and exaggerate it. And they did, and it was hilarious. And I didn't mind, and they did it so well, it was like almost mocking me, that I didn't mind at all, because I was like, look, that's beautiful. Now I understand you. I know you're mocking me, but I understand you. And that's the only thing that matters, is the communication. So don't worry, just speak like me, speak like you're imitating me, and you'll be speaking far, far clearer. Another student I heard, they spent the whole weekend just listening and repeating to a BBC News broadcaster, and almost in the space of like 2 or 3 days, they had vastly improved their pronunciation skills. Next part, the 3 parts of the exam. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Part 1, your introduction. The main aim in this one is to make you feel comfortable, because you could be going in there nervous. So these are everyday matters. They could be family, work, your hobbies. Do you study? Do you work? Do you live with your family? Do you rent? Everyday stuff. Here, just sort of like short answers. We don't really need to go into anecdote. Don't really need to go into examples, but general chit chat. Do not deformalize the conversation as though you're speaking with a friend. Go in there thinking about it as it's a job interview, so you've